Hello, my name is Joseph Carlson, and this is episode 43 of The Grief of Politics. I'm joined by Avin Carroll. Avin, how you doing?
I am doing okay. I'm not going to say great. I'm not going to say bad. I'm
Yeah.
just going to say okay.
I almost ranted. We called to coordinate all this. We already knew we were recording, but we just wanted to lay down the time, and I started to rant, and I said we're going to leave it for the episode, because boy, do I got a lot to say. I'm also going to put the explicit tag on the episode because, we want everybody to be able to listen to this, and sometimes you get mad. And if you're running the podcast and you get mad, then you're going to put the explicit tag on and probably go through it. Just a really quick announcement. We are getting more views on the channel, as Avin had pointed out right before we started recording. If you like what you are seeing, hearing, if you're subscribing on podcast services like Apple iTunes, the Amazon Store, Spotify, or if you like to watch the video on YouTube that drops on the 20th at 7 a.m. in the morning on YouTube, go to those places, like, subscribe, leave comments. You can write to us at GWG Podfellows. Do that. Just let us know that you like the show. I don't know how to do the icon yet because I'm an old man, but just like and subscribe with the little thumbs up and all that. And then, tell friends and family about it if you like what you hear and things like that.
If you think they'd get value from it.
Yeah. So, Avin, really all these just to be clear, we're doing basically, I'm calling this episode the 2024 election in February of the 20th. 20th of February, we did an episode 38, which was called an election update, because we were waiting for court cases with Trump to kind of clear out what's going on. Then the following episodes, we did Trump first, then we did Biden, their electability, the problems they had. And let me tell you, after June 27th, which was the presidential debate that Biden agreed to, things hit the fan. And I will say this. All political stuff likes to be up to date, but it seems like every 2 hours I'm getting a new story sent to my feed about insiders talking about this or this something leaking to the press. So we're recording this a few days before it posts. So everything we're about to say is probably not true, or at least out of date. But
old news.
Old news, not true. We're not trying to lie. But
if you want to know what our opinions are on
as of
the current state of the news, just keep listening through.
Yeah, and we're recording this on July 13th, so we both had time this weekend to record. So yes, we're a little ahead. Really, these articles I sent you, Avin, were just a jumping off place for a discussion. In my camp, discussion, possible rant. I don't know about you, but since I'm going to rant, just go ahead and tell me after reading these. Or actually, I haven't really got... maybe on the phone a little bit, but what do you think of this just tornado of news that's coming out of the the Democratic camp, basically the Biden campaign and Democrats in general? The eagle-eyed view from you looking, down at everything that's going on, and for audio listeners, Avin just took his glasses off and rubbed his nose and looked like he was deep in thought, and he's taking a breath. So.
Yeah, it's look, anyone who's been following the news for the last 2 weeks, which should be basically everyone here, you'd really have to be living under a rock, literally, to not have seen some of the news about how poorly the debate went for Joe Biden.
Yeah.
You and I have briefly talked about it since, right? The position I've had, right, is that all the debate did was just solidify everything conservatives have been saying about Joe Biden for the last year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah,
there's been a lot of mocking of him,
yeah.
But really talking about his cognitive decline and how he's tripping and all of the gaffes and all of that's been really hard for the last year and a half.
Right.
And all this did. All the debate did was just make all of it true. I've seen commentary from conservatives like the Democrats and the news media is just gaslighting America. People aren't going to believe it. We all saw for ourselves what happened. Breaking points that you share with me quite a bit.
I like them. They're pretty balanced. They're kind of like us. They have one kind of liberal hippie. I know that's not what Crystal considers herself. But they have one more conservative-leaning person, one more, liberal-leaning person, and they kind of talked about it. So,
and they're both in the same camp on this. Wow, this is just awful. After the debate, Crystal's commentary was basically the same as a lot of other people have been saying, and she's the one that tends to lean more left. almost always leans more left. And even she brought up the term elder abuse, right? Like it was
Yeah.
awful. And Joe's defense, his campaign defense, oh well,
Biden,
it's
not
a
me.
bad day.
Biden,
I
not
need to
me.
get more rest.
Yeah, Biden's defense, not mine.
Not Joe's.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah, I know.
not Joe.
I know.
Joe's not in agreement with this.
Everybody.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I'm having a Biden moment here.
Yeah.
Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Biden has basically come out and been like, I'm not coming out of the race. I'm as sharp as ever. Oh, his defenders have been saying like, oh, he's as sharp as ever. And the rest of us are sitting there going, we saw what we saw. Like, I don't care if you haven't been getting enough sleep lately. You're 81 years old.
Yeah.
So you're going to need more rest. If you need to have enough rest that you can't do the job, you shouldn't have the job. I mean, the questions being asked right now are very legitimate questions.
Yeah.
And conservatives have every right to be bringing these things up. The
Absolutely.
irony of it is, based off of another article that we didn't consider one of our in-episode articles, but one that we shared amongst each other, was about the kind of campaign managers. I don't want to say they're the campaign managers, but the like really driving the campaign strategy. A couple of people. It was an Atlantic article. I can get the details in a second.
You mean Trump's campaign?
And they're really leading the campaign for Trump, and like their whole campaign is built on attacking Joe Biden's cognitive abilities, his mental abilities, his physical stamina, his ability to do the job just because of his age. Their whole campaign is built around that. So, if Biden drops out, like they've got to start from the ground up. Now, I think they will, and I honestly do agree, right? Like every single person that could be brought in has weaknesses, but every single person on the planet has weaknesses.
Right. Yeah.
Biden should not be president. I think enough Americans that are undecided and independent have now seen that he's not capable of doing the job. He's just not. Like, he shouldn't even be there now. I will not be surprised if Joe Biden stands firm. I'm not dropping out. I would not be surprised if they pull the 25th Amendment and pull him out.
I will say, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to say that's too far. That's totally within the realm of possibility. My thing is, like, just everybody's seen this as long as they're, I don't know. My thing is, like,
you and I have been talking about it for a while, right? Like, we're not blindsided by this news, but we haven't been talking about it with the same level of like, oh man, that was bad.
It actually, I agree with everything you said, and to ramp up my rant, there's got to be an on ramp. I don't just want to start ranting. It is
pick up the pace a little.
Yeah, it is incredible to me the mirror image we're seeing right now between the people running the Biden campaign. Well, just in general, the Democratic Party and what we've seen with the Conservative Party, all the things that Democrats have said over the years about gaslighting, the behind, in the background quotes from anonymous sources that have said that they don't like Trump, they want him off the ticket, he's killing the party. Then you have these never Trumpers like Adam Kinzinger and I always say his last name wrong, Liz Cheney, all these people that were never Trumpers are the bold people that step away, and now you have Trump's camp, the MAGA people, as they've been called, are saying, forget those people. They're not with us. They're traitors. All this stuff that's now happening in the Democratic Party. And it's the same thing in the Conservative Party with Trump, where they didn't really run a primary. They said, well, he's our guy, so we're just going to stick with Trump. We're not going to put any candidates up for this election. Last election, they had the primary with, 14 people on stage or whatever, with, like, Jeb Bush and all that. And, like, now, this time, they said, well, Trump's our guy. So he's just going to go up, do the thing.
Kind of. They ran primaries. They had votes. Just no one was actually able to stand up in the primaries.
Oh, right. They did the Iowa thing, and Pence got beat. But the Democrats, from what I understand, what I've read, didn't even do that. They just said, well, Biden's our guy. And you're like...
Basically. They had two people that were running against him
in the
primary
they had
process.
Marianne Williams
the landslide
and
was
Cornel West. You have these, like... And it's so frustrating to me. Like, this just solidifies the fact that I am not a Democrat, that I'm far to the left and progressive. Because, Crystal and Sagar talked about some breaking points, which we're a fan of, and other people talk about it. This kind of, like, I don't want to say oligarchy, but like this like kind of gerontocracy, like this idea of like this people that coalesce stuff into power, this idea that they don't want to let go, and there's this whole generation of younger people, and even on the conservative side, like we've talked about it, especially with like climate change. There is a young conservative climate change movement where they have rallies and they talk in front of Congress, and they are conservative and they believe in climate change. And there's these people, and like, you know, you consider them diehard conservatives, and like the MAGA camp, they're trying to suppress these people when there could be some middle ground on a lot of issues. And you're seeing the same thing in the Democratic Party, where it's like Pelosi, all these people are doing background talks about what they think about Biden and how ineffective it is. And they're saying things like, well, we're with Biden. And like Pelosi was on Face the Nation or something, and she's, even though Biden said, I'm staying in the race, and wrote that letter to senators or whatever, Pelosi was on Face the Nation going, well, you know, whatever Biden decides to do, he decides to do. And it's like, but he just said he was staying in the race. So what? So you're literally just waiting. You're like, hey, Joe, you could change your mind. That's all that signals. It's like, you don't have to do this, right? And it's
Pelosi's statement was a little bit more subtle than that, but it alluded more to she wants him to drop out. Pelosi's statement was, I want him to do whatever he decides to do. This was after he committed that he was going to do it.
right.
We're all encouraging him to make that decision because that time is running short. Kind of, at least the way I read it, I didn't watch the interview, but the way I read it is she's sort of kind of like egging him on of like, you need to drop out, Joe.
Right.
Without openly saying it, because if he doesn't and he stays in, like they need to back their horse, and they can't show weakness in that unity.
Right.
So,
I mean, it is, like I said, it shows that I'm not a Democrat, because like this middle of the road, you know, like an AOC and Bernie Sanders going, yep, we're with them. It's like, that's so feckless, in my opinion. You know, like everybody's worried about, I don't know, they're always making these political calculations. But like a lot of people on the right and the left have brought up, if Donald Trump is truly a threat to democracy, like many people believe, then you need to have your best
like
foot
they're
forward.
Espousing at every opportunity they have
Right.
to speak.
That you need to have your best foot forward. And someone who can't speak, who during his NATO press conference, it was supposed to be, quote unquote, his big boy press conference, which, why are you talking about that way about a sitting president? He called President Zelensky of Ukraine President Putin. Then somebody yelled out Putin, you know, Zelensky's name.
Zelensky.
And he corrected him. He corrected it. Then when he was talking about, you know, somebody asked, is Kamala Harris like a strong candidate? And if she is a strong candidate, and you think if someone showed you polling that she could win, would you step aside? And he said, well, I think Vice President Trump is, you know, and he was trying to say like, I could beat Trump, blah, whatever. It doesn't matter, because that's all the clips that are being shown around right now.
But he never caught the Vice President Trump part.
And the whispering,
yeah, was,
like some other liberal commentators or progressive commentators have said the whisper yelling he's doing is really unsettling. He's like, you know, they were talking about the polls, you know, which I don't know what polls they're showing him. Every poll that I've seen says that he's losing by at least 3 points, if not 3 to 6 points, and he's dragging Democrats down. And he's like, the polls aren't saying that, in this weird whispery yell, which is really, really unsettling. And it just angers me to no end. And this crap about like, well, you know, you just suck it up, and I guess we're behind Biden. I'm right now, Avin, I'm telling you right now, you know, the old Dave Chappelle joke about white people don't like to talk about who they voted for. I'll tell you right now, I'm voting for Jill Stein. I don't care about, you know, this like thing of like, well, you know, it's your fault. It's like, no. First off, you guys were like, well, we're going to, you know, whatever, suck it up, we're going to lose, right? So not only have you cost the Democrats the race, and you might have cost them the House and the Senate, and it sets a horrible precedent, like a lot of people have talked about, and the right and the left, and the right talks about this with Trump. If he wins or loses, that just tanks us for years, and the same thing's going to happen to Democrats. People are going to wait. Is this the same party that propped up an 80-year-old one geriatric guy who couldn't walk off stage at a fundraiser, and Obama had to help him off?
This is the same party that torpedoed the clear favorite of their primary process and nominated their anointed one.
Biden. Yeah, with Bernie. Are you talking about the whole Bernie thing?
With Bernie.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and I don't know, I was watching a Peter Zion video a while ago about Trump versus Biden and the problems with both of them, and he brought up how, and the Obama administration, the way that they had built the nominating process and they sort of built the DNC around Obama, they created this problem. They made it hard for anyone younger to rise up within the party, anyone with new ideas to rise up within the party, because they structured it in such a way that like it only lifts up the old and established members of the party. Yeah. I've talked to Lisa multiple times, and for those that don't know, Lisa's my wife.
Oh, she didn't walk out of the room or roll her eyes? Like, my wife doesn't do that. We'll quietly listen to it, but I know there's like an internal eye roll that's kind of happening, or like, she's like...
Not on the specifics of the politics,
oh, right.
But on the fact that like just the current political state of our country has me deeply depressed. It has me deeply depressed because after the debate, a Democratic congressman, I don't remember if they were in the House or the Senate, I don't even remember who the person was, but they were interviewing him and he was like, look, we just got to stand behind our horse, and Biden's our horse. Like, he's the best one to win the race or something along those lines. And I was like, if that's the best you can do, shut the party down.
Yeah, I know.
That's my initial instinct. Because
well, even
there are so many battered leaders out there. No one wants these two on the ticket except for the most extreme reaches of the two parties. And anyone who's not a card-carrying member of the Democratic Party or the Republican Party is just sitting here shaking our heads in disgust.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, if being, on the left and seeing Biden all these years, if you don't think on the back of my head or many Democrats' head, it's like, this isn't going well, That's true, but like you said, the debate, and many people have said this, laid bare everything people thought bad about Biden. But I'll say this, now I know...
And people are jumping through hoops to make it sound right.
Dude,
they're looking for... This is like, oh man, I can't even remember
Coke.
what the movie was. There was a baseball movie, and I can't remember what it was, but there was like an old player on the team, and he hit a single. And the coach was like, look, see? And someone else looked at him and was like, look, if you're this excited about a single, it's over.
That's a good...
Right? And that's Biden right now. Like, if you're this excited that he can get a sentence out coherently with the teleprompter, like, it's over.
Yeah. It's so... I don't know who you're... I'm just going to vote for Jill Stein. It's like, no. Like, she's articulate. And she even did, like, a live reaction to the... Like, right after the debate. She's like, well, that was difficult to watch. And it was like, I just saw
it's not hard.
Yeah, I just saw
I have diametrically opposed views to Jill Stein. That woman is crazy. If you want to vote for her, that's fine. But like,
well, I'm crazy, Avin. No, it's one of those things where I'm like, it's just one of those things where I'm like, I can't. And this whole crap about,
no, I won't be voting for Biden or Trump. To answer your question, my current plan is to vote for Chase Oliver.
Oh, the libertarian, whatever. Mm-hmm. We should do.
He's the most sane libertarian candidate we've had in the last few years. I shouldn't say that. Mel Jorgensen was actually really put together, but she was buried. No one knew anything about her because of Trump. And that's the same thing for Chase Oliver. He's not in the news at all. He's not mentioned in any national polling.
Yeah, I think it sucks. Like I do, we talk about breaking points and I've seen Jill Stein be interviewed by them and The Hill and some other people. I'd want to see Chase Jorgensen interviewed by those. Like, hey, talk to us,
And the point is you don't know his name so poorly that you mixed him together with the previous libertarian who was a woman.
Oh, what's his
name?
Chase
Oliver.
Chase Oliver. Okay.
Yeah.
Has he done
Mel Jorgensen?
Has he done some interviews? Is it done some interviews?
Yeah, he's done quite a few, and he made a name for himself in the 2022 Walker Warnock runoff in Georgia because he was the one that was considered the spoiler.
Okay, I'm almost done with my rant. Maybe not. This is going to be an hour rant, but. When I was reading all this, stuff's going through my feed. This is how feckless the Democrats are. Like, you and I have talked all this time about, the election was not stolen. It was a free and fair, whatever, So Kari Lake in Arizona bankrupted the Arizona RNC because...
GOP.
Yeah, the GOP because...
And RNC, but...
Yeah, but anyway, she bankrupted the party in Arizona because she lost the election, and she kept taking everything to court to challenge, and it kept getting thrown out. And everybody said,
yep.
So now the RNC in that area in Arizona is like, we have no money for ads. Well, I just got a Twitter update from her Democratic challenger that said, man, we're only a point away. She's at 49%. I'm at 48%. I really need money to get over the line. And I thought, if you can't fucking beat Kari Lake, what in the goddamn are you doing? You know, what in the Sam hell is going on? You want me to give you money so you can beat Carrie Lake? Just put that woman in an interview and let her speak for an hour, and then you're like, I'm not voting for her, like you did.
But so many of her supporters agree with her.
It's so ridiculous. And then, you know, like you mentioned to me that like you've been listening to RFK because you were listening to a podcast with him, and you thought, you know, I've heard lots of crazy things about him. Let's see where he's going with this, and heard a thing, and then like, what'd you say? Like halfway through it, like turned, and you were like, oh god, there's the anti-vax stuff.
It was like 2/3 of the way into the interview. The first half to 2/3 of the interview, I was like, oh, he is actually pretty well put together. Oh yeah, he's got some really good ideas. Oh man, like he's completely correct about that problem with the RNC. He's completely correct about that problem with the DNC. Yeah, I mean he's stretching a little bit with like they're out to get me, they're trying to shut me down, and to some degree, like I kind of get it, right?
It's true. You know, states have made ballot access hard.
That's the way politics work in our country. That's the way the news cycles work in our country. So it's not new. It's not like third parties have always been bashed in our media. At least for the last 3 decades, they have just been bashed by our media. They're not allowed to have a platform. And maybe it was after Perot, the major news networks were like, oh man, maybe we can't give these guys coverage, or we have to label them as crazy or loons or wingnuts or whatever we got to call them so that we don't have to actually cover them, because people might actually like their ideas. And then it got to the second or the last third or so of the interview, and he started spousing off about vaccines being a conspiracy, and he started talking about CIA operatives run most of the news organizations now, and that's why they're all biased and not sharing with you the information. And you know, as ex-CIA leaders running the Atlantic and Slate, and he started naming off a bunch of places, and I was like, what?
Yeah, there's actually, so I'll give you the cliff notes. Did you hear there was a story years ago where there was an outbreak of measles in a country in Africa? And what happened was 2 nurses were distributing, in this village, were distributing vaccines. And I think, I want to say a number, I'm not going to quote the number, but a number of people died. So then RFK used that as a talking point to say, vaccines are harmful. These people have died. So the mayor of the town, the governor, said, okay, we're going to freeze all vaccines. Well, because he did that and measles was spiking, more people died. And what happened was they did an independent investigation after all this was, as this was going, and they found out the nurses used an expired muscle relaxer to administer the vaccine, which caused the death of these people. So it wasn't the vaccine, it was what they mixed with the vaccine. And because of that, and RFK used that talking point, people died. In fact, the governor or mayor of that town had to come forward and do mandatory vaccines and do these programs, and they were able to right the ship. But, you know, there's this, you know, there's a quick aside, but there's this big thing about, well, what does this vaccine really, misinformation really do? And it's like that's what it does. When people, and RFK himself used that as a talking point, and it cost people their lives, you know, and it's like, that's what it does. So if you know.
Yeah. And part of me is like, you know, we do want to get these people out and heard so that people can hear their ideas and their thoughts, right? Because RFK's got some good ideas that we could adopt and not nominate him. But
can we take,
like, if we let this guy come out and talk, like, it because he says stuff so off the wall, then you have to be able to counter him in real time, and that's extremely difficult.
Many podcasters in interviews have said that about either after RFK or why they won't have RFK on, because they said it's just a hose of misinformation or some good information, but
maybe not misinformation, but bad. I guess you could say misinformation. Like he's got bad data and he's sharing bad data or bad viewpoints and factually inaccurate viewpoints, but maybe not with malicious intent. So I don't want to say mal data, but misinformation is probably the closest phrase for it.
Right, and I mean that's my whole thing is like it's so whatever. Okay, we don't want to talk about. Okay, I do want to get to these articles, but I really want to use this article because this is another thing that's making me mad. So don't worry, I'm not going to come for George Clooney. I like George Clooney, but George Clooney wrote an op-ed that said I did a fundraiser for Biden. You know, it was 3 or 4 weeks ago with like Julia Roberts, like Bill Clinton was there. I think Obama was there. Like all these people. He wrote an op-ed and said, I read it. I don't actually have the article in front of me, but he basically said it's time for Biden to step down. You know, and I heard people on a liberal podcast, you know, they're talking about the New York Times people, like they were laughing. They're like, did you guys read Clooney's op-ed? And they were depressed, but they were making fun of it. And I literally, I was working alone and I stopped and I literally said out loud, why is that funny? Because here's the deal. You may not like George Clooney as an actor or whatever, but he's a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat supporter that will give millions of dollars to Democrats. And if he writes an op-ed with other donors that he threw a party with and says this person needs to step down, you need to listen to him. And so this idea of like we're just going to laugh or chuckle at George Clooney writing an op-ed, I was like, that's hubris right there. You know what I mean?
So here's what Clooney said, too, to kind of highlight it, too, right? Like, he's a big supporter, always has been a big supporter, right? We've talked about it. His wife is a very active, I guess you could actually say activist.
No, she's a civil liberties lawyer for like the International Criminal Court. Like she's like a big deal.
I didn't actually know that, but right, that makes her activism make even more sense, right? Her viewpoints make more sense. And here's the big takeaway from Clooney's op-ed that he wrote. Clooney wrote, "It's devastating to say it, but the Joe Biden I was with 3 weeks ago at the fundraiser was not the Joe big effing deal Biden of 2010. He wasn't even the Joe Biden of 2020. He was the same man we all witnessed at the debate. We are not going to win in November with this president. On top of that, we won't win the House, and we're going to lose the Senate." Right? And his arguments are completely sound. I don't disagree with him. I think he's completely correct. And I think any Democrat who's just standing behind Joe Biden right now is doing the same thing the Republicans have been doing for the last 8 years. We are going to stand behind our guy and support him so we can show unity, whether or not we agree with it, because we don't want to be the one who steps out of line. Like, when did we become this pseudo-monarchy, right? Like, WTF, guys?
Yeah, it is that whole thing of like, you know, again, the Democrats made fun of everybody in the conservative party for making Trump a king and not being able to step away from him as a candidate, you know, MAGA, right. The whole thing. And now they're doing it with Biden. So it's like, really, man, like, yeah. So Amal Clooney, who's George Clooney's wife, I'm reading this from Wikipedia, which I don't like doing, but anyway, she's a British international human rights lawyer. She has notable clients of hers include Moldavian President Mohamed Nasheed. She's even represented Australian WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, Iraq human rights activist Nadia Murad, and then she has held various appointments with the governments of the United Kingdom, United Nations, and is also an adjunct law professor at Columbia Law School. You know, she whatever, but I think now she's working for the ICC is what I heard. So, you know, there is a very funny clip. I just want to bring this up. It's an aside, but George Clooney was getting awarded like a SAG award, and Amy Poehler and Tina Fey were talking about George Clooney. They were presenting, and they went over his career. And they're like, just to be clear, and they went over her career. They go, you know, she's a human rights lawyer. She's won these cases. She's freed these priests from prison. And we're giving her husband an award. And I thought that was pretty funny. It was like, yeah, an actual lawyer that actually thinks we're giving her husband an award for being a good actor. You know, like it was a pretty good. But I mean, I just want to highlight this. When someone like that has the money and power to have these fundraisers is telling you, hey, man, this ain't right. And they're like, oh, really, that guy, whatever. You're like, okay, guys, then you've lost, you know? I mean, I wasn't even on the fence. I mean, it wasn't even, I mean, you and I have very different views about Gaza. But like even before that, I was like, this isn't right. And that just cemented how I felt after October 7th. And I was looking at other places, and then this happened. I'm like, you guys are ridiculous. This is ridiculous for this to happen, you know? Like, why? Why? What are we doing, guys? You know, like it's It's so bad. And I wanted to bring this up. Apparently, Jill Biden. Let's see if I can Whoops, I didn't scroll down. Whoops, wrong way. Okay. Anyway, Jill Biden has said to be. Now this is the Sunday Times. Everybody says you can't really take it. You got to take the Sunday Times with a grain of salt. But there's said to be this cabal inside Biden's camp, like his wife Hunter Biden, who listen. I'm all for. I think I said this privately over the phone. He's got a lot of Hunter Biden's got a lot of stuff on his plate right now. He's hopefully
a little bit.
He's hopefully going through recovery. He's appealing his felony convictions, and he's probably trying to scrape together a new version of whatever he considers life. Really starting from the bottom up. So that's the guy supposedly, allegedly, that you're going to have in your camp going, here's what you should do. I'd be like, no. And, I don't know if that's true.
It's his son.
Yeah.
And our presidents are humans, right? And he loves his son. So he believes what his son is telling him, most likely. Because he wants his son to be telling him the truth.
Yeah.
So he's going to.
Do you think...
The thing is, if you're in cognitive decline and you're sliding into delusion, dementia, right? You're losing your grip on space and time and reality.
Right.
You don't have good judgment, right? When he's saying that, I'm the best and I can do it, he's not the one who's going to have the best judgment on this because you just don't. You don't. I mean, You have good days where you recognize, oh man, I'm having problems, aren't I?
Yeah.
But that, if you've seen it in your own personal life, you know.
Yeah, I have. I also heard a horrible insider story. And again, this is allegedly, but apparently even in briefings with his cabinet, they have to have curated talking points because he sometimes will slip in and out, not seem to pay attention. And so could you imagine being in a cabinet with a president and you're like, wait, I can only say these 4 things? But I have a whole agenda. We got to run this meeting longer. I run the department. I run the Department of Education.
Maybe they pulled the 25th Amendment and they just take him out, right? That would give Kamala the remainder of the presidency, which wouldn't be very long, right? It'd be a matter of months by the time they actually pulled it through.
I think what will happen is, so do you think that's what's going to happen? Do you think that's what they're going to do?
My personal opinion is the pressure's going to continue to build because he's going to continue to have these lackluster appearances, these last, like I said, these singles that everyone's out in the media championing.
He bunted one. Oh my God, he bunted and messed the pitcher up, and he got a base.
Yeah. Right. He's going to continue to have these little wins. He's going to continue to have really embarrassing gaffes. I think they're going to refuse to do another debate. If they do another debate, it's going to be really disappointing, and Trump is just going to march all over it.
I did hear a good quote, and listen, I'm not a fan of Trump, but he is very savvy. And I guess he said back, in the background, somebody's like, what about another debate? And he said, I can't do that to Biden. And I thought, no, that's an own. That's like a nuke from orbit of so do we just ask one question? I just let him talk. Hey, could you guys do that split screen you did before with the cutaway with the first debate? Because that was really all I needed was the split screen of me paying attention to the question and him staring off against the wall or, his mouth open. We'll just do that again. Just ask the one question, and even that line at the end of the debate that Trump had where he's like, I don't even know what he said at the end. I don't even think he knows that. I was like, yeah, we're done here. It was
exactly.
Just yeah.
If they did another debate, if they honestly did another debate, right, the best Biden can hope for is to just show that he's cogent. Yeah. Hey, I can maintain focus on a topic long enough to get a sentence in response. Honestly, my own opinion is if Biden doesn't make the decision either at the behest of his camp or, pressure from Democrats that are high-ranking, I think they're eventually going to go to him and they're going to say, hey, look, we don't want to run the 25th Amendment on you. We're going to.
I think
if you don't drop out. Save face.
I think that's true, and I think what's going to happen is, on background, but I think it's getting louder and louder, is that these Democrats are looking at re-election, and Breaking Point's brought up the other day that New York is now a swing state, which it's been dyed-in-the-wool blue Democrat state forever. And if you look at that, if I was a Democratic senator, congressman, whatever, in New York, I would fly to the White House immediately and be like, what in the holy crap is going on? What
Right.
are you guys doing? And if that becomes more, if those numbers are pulling down, I mean,
Yep.
again, it's the same. Again, it mirrors the Trump world. The idea that people would follow Trump around, give him positive polls,
Yep.
show him positive stories. And every time Biden's interviewed, he's like, that's not the polls I'm seeing. And it's like, well, then
Right.
are they written up with crayon? And like, are you winning with like a blue crayon and a check mark? Like, what are you reading? Like,
Right.
and
Right.
and I will say this: I will defend a few Democrats because I listen to Pod Save America. Yes, I think Sagar brought it up. He's like, hey, listen, I don't agree with them ideologically at all, but they did run and win 2 campaigns that were rough. Obama got reelected. Like, they ran the first campaign, he was elected. So if you want to listen to these guys about electability, you can't be like, well, they don't know what they're talking about. It's like, well, clearly they do because he got reelected. And they were saying, listen, we think the people around Biden, they keep getting thrown under the bus. I think they're good people, but I think what they're trying to do is they're in an unwinnable situation where if they give him, there's been a lot of stuff in background, and if you give Biden, and this happened with Trump as well, again, a mirror, if you gave him something that was unflattering, he'd start yelling at you, or berating you. So you're like, well, what's the point then? So am I just going to follow him around and get him a good poll every day? Like, I need my job. I live in like one of the most expensive places in America, So like, what am I, so like crap,
Let alone you don't want to commit career suicide and make it impossible for you to work in your chosen field anymore either, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Like, people are in a rock and a hard spot, but that's not for the staffers to do. That's for our congressmen and senators to do, right?
And I'll say it as
they're not.
As
Republicans don't want to pull the 25th Amendment. They don't want to do it. They want him on the ticket.
Yeah, and I this is an aside, but I just keep thinking of this. I was listening to a podcast and it was not political at all. Somebody's just making a joke. They're like, it was like the intro talk before you get to the subject of the podcast, and they go, how's everybody feeling? And someone said, well, I don't feel very patriotic. I watched episode 1, Star Wars episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and they're like, because I just need to like escape. And I thought about it, and they're like, I was like, you know what? I can't believe I'm saying this, but the Phantom Menace democracy is better because they actually had a vote of no confidence and the chancellor could have been forced to step down. And they did it in the movie, and Terrence Stamp had to step down. And that makes me want to watch the Phantom Menace, and that makes me depressed for what's going on. 2 depressing things to make me want to rewatch the Phantom Menace. And say that, George Lucas was really onto something with his version of democracy. Like, oh my God.
We would like to hope that it would work that way. Unfortunately, reality is more disappointing. Yeah, it's just, it's depressing, right? And I think the most frustrating thing for Trump in all of this, right, is he's watching the Biden presidency implode. So part of him's got to be happy. Mm-hmm. But the other part of him is over there like, why am I not in the news?
Well, I think...
Why isn't anyone covering me?
I think he's been very smart and been quiet, and I got it.
He hasn't been.
Well,
the news just isn't covering him because Biden's news is bigger.
Yeah, well, I will say
he's
this.
He's still ranting on Truth Social.
Yeah.
He's still doing interviews. He's still saying crazy stuff at
he didn't know
events.
He didn't know about Project 2025, and apparently people worked for him that are working on it. It's always that thing with Trump where he's like, I don't know that person.
Massive percentage of people that did Project 2025 have worked for him.
What I think is really great about it is with Trump. I mean, this happens with everybody, but it seems like more with Trump is he always says, I don't know who that is. I've never heard of them. And then a day later, the news digs up 17 photos of them hanging out at various events. Which, listen, you could not know a person after 1 or 2 photos. Oh, and another thing that's not being covered, I just want to say this to every conservative out there that talks about groomers, whoever you think falls in the groomer category or the whatever, for whatever sexual orientation you think, or trans person, whatever. Anybody on the LGBTQ spectrum that you call a groomer, it was released, and again, like you said, this stuff's being buried. Epstein's flight logs were released, and Trump was written in on there 7 times for Epstein's private plane. 7 times. So
To
Trump,
Epstein Island?
yes. So Trump and there was another story that came out that there was a sexual assault thing against Trump before I think it was like right before the debate. So again, it got buried after the debate. But an underage girl was going to sue Trump for sexual assault because, again, he promised a job and modeling and all this stuff. And there was another unnamed person in it. And that got uncovered. But then she dropped her lawsuit because the moment she came forward and said, I'm going to sue Trump, she started getting death threats and harassment, just like the judges we've seen and all the federal workers. And so she withdrew her suit. And so for every person that backs Trump, when you talk about all these people are groomers, and I'm not saying everybody's perfect, and there isn't some groomers on the left, but when you have someone that name is written down 7 times on someone's plane that was a convicted sex trafficker with his assistant, and you've been photographed with him several times, and your lawsuit got dropped, you can't talk to me anymore about groomers. I'm sorry. It's like, come on, man. Really?
Selective amnesia, man. Right?
Those groomers are bad, but our groomer is good. It's like, what?
He's not a groomer. He doesn't know him. He hasn't done. That's all fabricated, Joe. That was all put in afterwards. This is all just the deep state trying to paint Trump as bad.
Oh my God.
Right? Like the mental gymnastics that people will go through to deny the truth, and they're gonna say we're doing the same thing. Whereas the difference between us and someone else who's backing Trump in this is at least we're gonna be like, you know what? I don't know. I wasn't there. But the gun is smoking.
Yeah. Someone's holding the gun, and there's like, I fired a pistol before, like there's a little bit of smoke coming out of that thing. Yeah. It's
the idea of where there's smoke, there's fire, right? And we've discussed this with Trump before, and I will again reiterate, like, there is so much controversy around this guy. He's always bragged about how he hires the best people, the smartest people. He's going to hire the smartest people and the best people. And yet his cabinet was like, I don't know how many people he fired or quit from his cabinet within his only 4 years as president. Like, it was obscene. It was way past 50%.
That, and they were convicted of multiple crimes.
Right.
The list.
So these are the people you surround yourself with, right? And there's the adage in, well, I don't know what community you'd say it in, but there's an old standing adage, been around for a long time. You show me your 5 closest friends, and I'll tell you your future.
God, I just thought about it. I don't know if I can get to 5. I probably get to. I can get to 5. I can get to 5. Like right over there.
Right, but I mean, tell me the 5 people you spend the most time
with.
No, and
I think you have a good adage, and it's true. I'm just wanting to see if I could reach the 5 bar. Like if I could, I don't even know if I can get that far.
Well, and that's a totally different societal problem we've got going on of men not having friends.
Yeah.
Totally different topic.
Yeah,
Go ahead. It's just, again, I can't come back to what I said earlier, right? Like, these are the best 2 ones we can possibly put out, right? And most of my conservative friends, before Trump was nominated, before the process started, have all basically, he's not great, but, he's so much better than Biden. There's no possible way we can vote for Biden. I just can't do it. Trump did good things when he was in office. He did this, he did that. Yeah, he did some other things I don't like, but now that we've gotten further and further into the process, like, to justify it in their heads, they're now, no, Trump's a victim. They're just out to get him. Trump's great. He's wonderful. Because you've got to work that through in your head. And most people that are voting for Trump, I have to feel this way. Like, if you sat down and talked to them calmly and went through the facts, and you weren't like, you're a moron, you're an idiot, I think most of them would come back and be like, yeah, I just can't vote for Biden. That's the problem here. Like, you're right.
But I think it's like
a lot of problems.
I think
not happy about stuff.
I think
I can't vote for Biden.
I think you're the perfect example, though, to go, hey, there's other options out here. Right. Chase Oliver. Did I get his name right this time?
But you did. But Here's the problem. Our media and our 2 primary parties in this country have sold the lie. Voting third party is throwing your vote away,
Yeah.
and it's going to get the other guy elected. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what third party you pick, it's going to get the other big bad elected if you do that. You can't vote third party.
I think
So I had a brainstorm on this last night. Lisa had to listen to me in bed like rant about my ideas.
Did you turn over and she was asleep and you were like yelling at the ceiling or whatever? Like,
nah,
okay.
she was knitting a hat for a friend who's about to have a baby.
Oh. But my thing is, so I had this, again, you and I think very differently about Gaza. But I had this epiphany with, when there's an exit, they do exit interviews with voters. And they go, oh, some people felt this. It was a percentage of this. But I think with the Gaza issue, what we saw, now follow me, it's a long train to get to the station. The Gaza vote with uncommitted is a percentage of the vote. And a lot of people said if this gets a higher percentage of the vote, delegates could go to uncommitted, which is crazy. Electoral votes could go to uncommitted, or what? I think it was delegates. So the delegates went to uncommitted. That is a clear sign your policy failed. This is what we think about your policy, right?
Right.
And so I think you're probably already there, but I'm just coming to this at the station. If enough people are upset about this, you're at the station with my stuff going, hey, I got your car, it's ready to go. If enough people vote third party and they go, wow, like Chase Oliver got 3% of the vote, he actually got one electoral vote. Because they do ranked choice voting in certain states. Let's say he gets like some miracle, he gets like 3 electoral votes. Hey, Jill Stein got 2 electoral votes. Wow, you know what? This is like really a thing. Like it's they want electoral votes. Because I remember years ago when me and a coworker voted third party. God, like must have been during not Bush. Obama? Maybe it was Obama or Bush. And I remember we were very depressed. And then the next morning we came in and he goes, how much did your candidate lose by? And I go, I don't know, how much did your candidate lose by? And we actually had break. And we went online and we're like looking at the percentages. And we're like, oh, look, the percentages are kind of high. Like, this isn't bad. No electoral votes, but like, it's pretty, it would take something like that, like an electoral vote or something to be like, oh, so-and-so got whatever. And then, of course, you're going to get the crybabies. Talk about bedwetters. That's what all the Democrats have been calling other Democrats online now. Talk about bedwetters when what's going to happen in the debate. And I saw it when Biden barely won by 50,000 votes or whatever it was. People going, oh yeah, like this is, you voted for Hillary or whatever. And like, look at this. And that's exactly what's going to happen. Like all the percentage of like the Cornel West vote, the RFK vote, all that's going to come through. And they're going to be like, these people could have voted for Biden. It's like, no, dude, no. You could have had a stronger candidate. You could have been that, so we could have been excited and wanted to vote for that candidate.
That means you have to take accountability. Yeah. And asking someone in politics to take accountability, Joe, is basically asking for the Red Sea to be split again.
It's the worst. Yeah, it's just so ridiculous to me. I have the Trump article up. I'm trying to find it really quick here here it is.
Oh, so the article from the Atlantic?
Yeah, it was by it was written by Tim Alberta on July 10th, 2024. It is a massive article in the Atlantic. Go read it. One thing I think is really...
And it's really good reporting,
yeah.
In my opinion. But think what you will about the Atlantic. Tim did a really good job of, at least for... I read about half of it, because it's really long. At least for the half that I read, he did a really good job of reporting the facts and the details as he observed them.
Yeah, I think...
with very little exposition at the part that I had gotten to. I'm sure later on he's giving his own opinion, but...
He does a little bit, but he backs it up with like an interview. So he's like, yeah, so this is why that person was thinking. I will say there was one kind of elephant in the room as I was reading the article, and they talk about... I want to go down to this, because I saw this. I know it's by a picture... Nope. Sorry. It was it was difficult to... It's, as you can see, it's right... one of the guys, his name is Blair. He was like worked for an election commission or something. And this is something that was reported. I'm going to highlight it here. He said, As Blair and I stood up to leave the conference room, he stopped me. The smirk was gone. He wanted to make something clear. He takes these decisions very seriously because if we lose, I think there's a pretty good chance that they could throw us in jail. Now, they do go on to talk about the deep state and, like, arrests and, like, you know, all these prosecutors are going to come after them. But, like, some of that is true, but also the other elephant I wanted to talk about in the room, and he continues on to say, it was a startling moment. I'd heard campaign aides make offhand remarks before about expecting to end up incarcerated for helping Trump, but this was more direct, more paranoid. Blair was telling me that in a second Biden administration, he expected deep state flunkies to arrest him for a crime of opposing the president. And he wasn't alone. Brian Hughes, a campaign spokesman known for his extensive government work and general affability demeanor, nodded in agreement with Blair's book. I think we all feel that way. But the one elephant in the room that I kept thinking, because I keep talking about all this money they raise and this grassroots thing, and they're changing how the RNC does stuff, and even people in the RNC are like, hey, I kind of agree with this, you know? The one thing that they don't bring up is Trump's, well, they're probably not, but Tim doesn't bring up, is Trump's legal bills. I've heard so many reports that is such a massive drain on the RNC because they're paying for Trump's legal bills, or some of them, right?
Right.
And
because he has sold the party.
Yeah.
Not just the MAGA diehards. He sold the party on the concept that they're out to get us. If you are Republican, you are with me. I am with you. And they are out to get us. And so people don't care that their donations to the Republican National Convention are paying for Trump's legal bills because they feel that it's defending conservatism as a whole. It's protecting Republicans as a whole. Now, I don't have direct evidence of that. That's just my interpretation of how the human psyche works, how it goes together, and how Trump has been able to build this massive level of support, right? Before we started the primary process, before we started the lawsuits against Trump, he'd sort of started to slip out of the media. But once the lawsuits came up, he's been able to run this narrative again. They're out to get me. It's the deep state. It's the Biden administration. Biden's flunkies have all been doing this. They're doing this at Biden's behest. And there's a massive contingent in America, not even just conservatives. There's a massive amount of Americans themselves who believe that narrative. Even that podcast I talked to you about where they interviewed RFK, like that guy I generally really respect. He tends to have a pretty neutral opinion. He tends to look at the facts very well. And he has talked about the weaponization of our legal system against Trump. To which I'm like, but he broke the law.
Again, I've said it here and you've said it. Hunter Biden did break the law. He went through a court and he was found guilty. He has the right of appeal. Trump also has the right to appeal his 34 felony convictions, and we'll see how that plays out. They both have the right of appeal. You know, will Hunter Biden go to jail? I don't know. You know, like I said, I think the severity of the laws are different, but he did break the law. You know, and so did Trump. So this idea that, like, you know, it's being weaponized one way or another. It's like, you know, and again, we've said it before. If they did something wrong, arrest them. And again, I want to reiterate it. All the people on the right that are like, well, what if we start going after Hillary? And what if we do? Yes, go ahead. I don't care. Oh God, that would feel good too. Her in court.
Right. Do it. Like, that's what we're saying here is no one is above the law. Actually go after them.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, man. Okay. Like,
and you know why Trump didn't when he got elected? He didn't do it because he was like trying to keep the peace or anything. It's because there wasn't enough evidence to move forward on it. I guarantee you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guarantee you. And the other irony of this, they're out to get me. They're hunting me down. This is all a witch hunt. This is all politically motivated. They're using the Justice Department as a weapon. And yet, Trump has publicly said, his supporters have publicly said, his talking heads have come out in public and said that when he's elected, we're going to go after our political enemies.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to weaponize the system to go after the people that opposed you. You're no better.
Yeah.
If what you think the Biden administration is doing in their hunting down of Trump for his alleged crimes is bad and is the weaponization of the legal system, you think that is bad, you should not be voting for Trump because he has publicly said he's going to do it. At least Biden, if he is doing it, has denied it in public.
And he did float suspending the Constitution on True Social. So he could. It's like, yeah, it's
yeah. All right, both of us, we're both in the same camp on this, man. It's crazy. Neither of us want either of these people on the ballot, and yet it's where we're at, right? Like, it's sad.
What we should do
really,
is,
really sad.
we always have the Election Day pod. That's why this drops on the 20th. We should do the okay, whoever wins, whatever, Biden wins through whatever, some miracle. Trump wins, Biden's off, the Democrat wins, whatever, Trump, whatever. We'll be like, yeah, okay, they're the winner. Let's talk about these third-party results. Maybe we'll do that of hey, here's how much Chase Oliver got. He's kind of building momentum. Here's how much Jill Stein got. Here's how much Cornel West, whatever. We'll maybe build a portfolio out of we just want to spotlight these. Or maybe we'll do it before and after. Maybe we'll do it the month before, in December. And then, November is the election day. Maybe we'll do it November because your vote is the 4th of November. It's the first Tuesday of the month or what. It's voting day is the primary is the 4th of yeah, I'd have to look that up. Are you looking it up right now?
I am.
Yeah.
November 5th.
Okay. So yeah, maybe we'll do that, not in November, maybe we'll do that October, the October episode of here's a bunch of third parties, just so you can read this and keep it in mind as you go to the polls and you don't feel as depressed. I know. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
One of the things that you sent me that was interesting too, and I did want to talk about this, is you sent me Emerson College Polling's website.
Yeah.
On their most recent poll. It was published July 9th.
Yep.
Today is July 13th, so it's relatively recent. But after the debate, it's showing the headline, or the top line is, in a national poll, Trump versus Biden only. Trump leads at 46 to 43. If you add in the third parties, no, it's not adding in third parties. If you look at the polling and you look at the voters that are there, 11% of the voters are undecided.
Okay.
So that means there's an 11% swing. Those 11% are going to decide the election. And of those 11%, they are split 50-50 on leaning Biden and leaning Trump. So those people are the people that are going to actually decide the election. Now, the reason that Democrats don't want to pull the trigger on anyone is because no one else is polling to win. If you go down the likely alternatives, you have Harris versus Trump. And in Harris versus Trump, Trump actually has more. It's 49% to 43%. There's only 8% undecided in there. So there's a very low likelihood that Harris would actually beat Trump at the current point.
And a lot of people brought up that, I guess in the last election, or maybe it was historically, but at least in the last election, Republicans were shortchanged, meaning they did better than they were polled, and Democrats did worse than they were polled. So if the Democrat was up 6, they'd only win by 3. If the conservatives were down 3, they'd tie. You know what I mean? It was something like that.
So you go down the list, right, and there's not a single person on this list that wins. Sanders loses 42 to 48, 10% undecided. They brought in Al Gore on this survey, which I think is kind of weird. I haven't heard that anywhere else. Trump versus Gore is 47 to 42. Clinton, Hillary versus Trump, 48 to 41. Why would you even do that? She already lost. Newsom versus Trump,
I know.
48 to 40. I don't even know why we bring Newsom in. There's so much that he could be attacked with.
Yeah, he's got garbage.
Buttigieg versus Trump is 49 to 39 with 12% undecided. Warren, 49 to 39, 13% undecided. Whitmer versus Trump, 48% to Trump, 38 for Whitmer. And then Josh Shapiro, I haven't heard that name floated either. He's the Pennsylvania governor.
Yeah. I heard he's pretty good, but I've heard his name floated a little bit.
46 to 38 with 16% undecided. Now, that's probably because no one knows who Josh Shapiro is.
Yeah,
Whitmer's got name recognition. Buttigieg has name recognition. Newsom has name recognition. Right? Like, I understand why people are apprehensive about trading out. Now, if you notice in those running numbers, like Trump's basically staying in that same range. He doesn't have a plurality. There's still that anywhere from 8% is the worst. That's Harris of undecided voters versus 16% at the high end for Josh Shapiro.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still think if you bring in a coherent centrist Democrat, you've got a really strong chance of beating Donald Trump.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the polling numbers don't say that.
Yeah, it's so...
And that's why they don't want to pull him. Because right now, his data is the most solid, the most, and the best in a head-to-head win in a hypothetical matchup.
Yeah.
So, like, and I've seen a ton of articles. I saw an article on The Hill, another one in Wall Street Journal, where basically we're like, Democrats are doing the right thing, keeping Biden in the race. And they point to some event in the past where they traded candidates late in the process, and it caused a bunch of instability. So, anyway, I wanted to bring that up because you brought that up, and I think numbers matter. Numbers are hard data that we can point to.
Yeah.
And the rest of all of this, right, and obviously this is what our show is opinion. But these are the numbers and where we stand currently.
I mean, there is an upside chance that, like, if, like you said, like a center Democrat came in, whatever... There is this kind of, I mean, again, it's opinion. You don't know if it's going to happen. But the idea that it would, like, at least lead to some excitement of a new candidate, and you'd get, like, kind of a groundswell of, like, excitement. Who knows? And even I think of the conservatives, if they brought someone out that was, like, whatever, I think they'd be like, oh, yeah, he doesn't have all that baggage of Trump, you know? But I know you got an appointment and everything. Is there anything you want to plug before we leave, Avin?
Well, you know, like always, I generally recommend people check out my YouTube channel. I don't have anything current on there, just to be transparent. But there is useful information about buying, selling your home, real estate. It's called Your Agent Guide, if this is your first time hearing about it. If you watch the show, you're already familiar. And then you could also follow my Your Agent Guide Instagram account if you'd like just kind of current stats data on what's going on in real estate nationally.
Yeah. I probably should put a link to your show in the show notes so that way people could just click on the link. That would probably be good. I haven't done that yet.
I mean, I would appreciate that.
I'll do it. It's just an easy copy and paste. I'll do that. For me, you know, I got the other two podcasts that we, you know, Avin's on, Apparently Gaming with Grief, that comes out every week. Just a gaming, do reviews, a little bit more interviews. Well, not interviews, but like, you know, we have more discussion on that show now. And then, you know, twice a week for now, we do a tabletop podcast. It's about to be once a week. It's just we're trying to get caught up. We have a bunch of back episodes we're trying to post. Those come out Wednesday and Friday, so check that out. But yeah, that's it. I think, you know, oh man, what a year. You know, what a year. And with that, I think we'll say goodbye. And, you know, we'll talk to everybody next month.
All right.
No intro. We're back. We had to do a stinger. I don't know if that's even the right term. It just stuck in my head. But as I published the pod, or, you know, edited the pod, it was going to publish later in the week, was going to put politics behind me, Avin. I was going to say, I'm going to go to a barbecue with family.
Move on to video games, something nice and neutral.
You know the feeling when you're reading too much about something, you're too in it, you're like, I gotta unplug, you know? And I thought it was my chance to unplug. And boy howdy was I wrong. Because as I pulled up to my relative's house and you text me and said Trump has been shot at a rally in Pittsburgh, they were taking him off stage right now, I literally walked into the house of my relatives, most of them being Trump supporters, and said, have you heard the news? Trump got shot. And they said, what? And they turned on the news, and we watched the same 2 minutes of footage for 3 hours, probably, of to give people an update. That's why I have the news up here. They did identify the shooter. He's dead. He was identified by the FBI as Thomas Matthew Crooks, a 20-year-old from Pennsylvania. 2 other at the rally attendees were critically injured. One, it says 2 people were killed, including, one at the rally was killed, a bystander. The shooter was killed, so that's 2 at the rally, and 2 were injured.
Yes.
Tons of rumors. Again, there's footage being released from people that were near the rally, obviously outside, because, people tailgate around rallies or they can't get in, so they're having a party or just talking, or maybe they're going in to get drinks, or I don't know. But footage of him on the roof, of them like, hey, he's up there. And apparently he was only about 130 feet away from the president, which seems too close.
He was 400 feet.
400 feet, so still kind of close, gotta say. You think the Secret Service... In fact, there was a press conference where I don't know if it was the sheriff of that, whatever, it was a law enforcement official gave a press conference. I missed a chyron when he was speaking. They said, isn't it strange that, should... Basically, like, how was he able to get so close? And he flat out said, that's a question for the Secret Service. And they didn't...
Yes, that was the PR spokesperson for the FBI.
Oh, well, they also did not have a... Whoa, what is happening? That's weird. Oh. What happened? Anyway, my mouse...
Technical challenges here, folks.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. You're going to look at the back of my screen. Yeah, so the FBI did not have a representative there at the press conference, which I think is strange.
The Secret Service did.
Secret Service did.
The FBI did.
Yeah, I still think it's
Secret Service hadn't issued any notice, at least at that point. I haven't seen anything from them other than, they're investigating.
Right.
Trump on Truth Social did put out, thank you to all law enforcement, Secret Service, called them out for it, expressed his appreciation to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the same question you or I or anyone else would ask, right? This is supposed to be a presidential press conference. How on earth was that roof not covered?
Yeah, rally or whatever, yeah.
And presidential rally, right? Well, presidential campaign rally.
Yeah, campaign rally.
The language correct. Right, there's footage of the Secret Service, or at least law enforcement snipers on the roof of another building that was within the grounds of the facility where they're at. And there's interviews of people who've been we were standing there pointing at the guy for 2 minutes, we could see him bear crawling across the building with the rifle. And we kept yelling he's got a gun and trying to get their attention, and they just weren't looking at him.
It's
so there's lots of questions.
There's also audio of somebody pumped the audio up of when Trump was on stage and they were on top of him, the Secret Service, and you can hear them saying to their the shooter is down, let's go, because they're all keeping him down until. Obviously, and like I told my relatives, like I said, most people at the party were Trump supporters. And my cousin said to me, she goes, "Oh, she was joking, but she goes, this is probably good. You probably don't mind, right?" And I go, no. I don't agree with Trump, and I think he's a narcissist. That doesn't mean I want him to be shot. This is not good, because to me. Because of the whatever they find in the investigation, who's to say it's not going to happen on their side? If someone goes, because already I've seen the tweets of, these are unhinged people, but they're like, oh, now Biden needs to be held responsible. And it's like, what? You know what I mean?
There's people calling for raise up militias to strike back because it's the deep state. Mike Rowe put out a comment about it because a friend of his.
Oh, the Dirty Jobs
news reporting.
The Dirty Jobs guy.
Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs, most notably from Dirty Jobs, put out a comment that a good friend of his was there and was covering the event, and was very shocked, but was together enough to take notes or whatever and then report on it afterwards, and made the comment of this is a horrible, awful thing. And it could have been far worse if he'd actually been killed. And I completely agree. The response, if he had been killed, would have been far more tragic for the country.
Yeah. Again, I don't agree with him, but that doesn't mean I want him to die.
Right. Let alone the fact that he doesn't deserve to die. You and I have talked about it quite a bit. We both feel from our perspective of the evidence that we've seen, we feel like the man is a criminal and he needs to be punished. Not killed.
Yeah, he needs to be
go to jail.
His view of how the country should be run should be battled in the battle place of in the battlefield of ideas, and he should be defeated in court, not with a bullet. And there's how did apparently they found explosives in the shooter's car. They also
Yep.
maybe found some explosives in his home, from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I didn't hear about
Uh,
that.
but they're searching his home right now. They've also interviewed people that he went to high school with because he was only 20, and they said
Right.
he was bullied pretty severely. Um, and of course, we don't know his motivations, obviously, but like there was, I don't know if you read the one thing or heard the one thing. They actually have the receipts. He donated to a progressive super PAC, but it was
They
like
think it was him, someone with his first and last name.
because he was
donated
underage. Because he was like underage.
He was
or something.
17.
Right.
But then 8 months later had turned 18 and registered as a Republican.
Right. And so,
So there's, I've got some more left-leaning liberal friends in my social media circles that are strongly saying this was an inside job. Trump was doing it to rally the sympathy vote so he can look like a martyr and a hero.
that's too bad. You know how hard it would
And
be
that's
to
why the Secret Service wasn't covering, because that was planned.
It's all this stuff is going to happen. We're going to have to read through all this stuff. I will say
And you know what the irony of it is all of this, you could say it's, okay, Trump getting shot at, the person getting killed, the other people don't want to suffer trouble. The shooter made the choice and made that action.
Well,
But I will say the environment we live in, where this level of deep, rampant speculation on this was an inside job, this is because of people that openly, publicly support Trump, like Alex Jones, saying that Sandy Hook was an inside job, right? This is the QAnon world of conspiracy theories that has become so common. Like, none of us trust anything anymore.
yeah,
None
it's
of us do.
I mean, my thing is this, like it will. I mean, it's totally going to change. Obviously, the election now. I mean, Trump is fine. Luckily, he's okay and recovering, but it's totally going to change the
But
election.
he's severely, severely lucky.
Yeah.
I saw some commentary last night from some very, very deep into the MAGA support. Just reading through comments of people underneath it on social media, because Glenn Beck posted a picture of Trump with his fist out.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
people underneath it, and one of them was, you can definitely tell this man is blessed by God and was protecting him today. They're all out to get him, and God's keeping him safe, was essentially the comment. I'm not quoting directly, but that's basically what it was. And you could say that one way or the other, depending on what your faith is or your view in the world, but legitimately, he's very lucky.
Yeah. I mean,
400 feet with an AR style rifle is not long range.
there was also
A trained shooter would have killed him.
well, there's
The
a
fact that it was an untrained 20-year-old,
there's also,
he's lucky.
I don't know if it's been confirmed, but there was some reporting going around that he didn't use a scope. So he was trying, but I don't know if that's been confirmed. Obviously, they're going to go through and they're going to do ballistics. They're going to do all that kind of stuff of their investigation. They're going to create a timeline. They're going to, I know Merrick Garland said, I mean, the FBI's already there, but he said, yeah, the ATF's going down there like every agency you need. And I heard that Biden said, we're going to do an independent review of the Secret Service that were involved to see what they could have done. Because if you're Biden, I'd be like, yeah, we need to tighten this up because it's happened. I mean, like you said, all these people writing about, look how they're after him. What person? And, I brought that up to one of my family members, and I said, it's not like this is the first time this happened in my lifetime, but like violent acts have happened. And he looked at me and kind of sarcastically said, oh, you mean January 6th? And I go, well, yeah, that. But also, we reported on the fact that, on our podcast that after the polls closed and Trump lost, that what was it, in Arizona, a man stormed or shot in an FBI headquarters, remember, and the FBI agents had to have a shootout with him and had to kill him because he thought the election was fake. We also, I mean, it's just stuff like, it's like, yeah, so this isn't like the whole atmosphere is.
This also, right, it's not the first time that we've had a president attacked. Reagan in 81, Kennedy, obviously.
Yeah, RFK as well.
Right.
RFK's.
RFK.
Yeah, not Junior, but yeah, his Bobby. Yeah. The famous scene in the famous photo in the kitchen. I think he got shot. He was in that kitchen or brought in the kitchen or whatever.
Afterwards.
Oh yeah.
Um, right? The rhetoric of violence from Trump himself has been very strong. I actually have a friend of mine who had posted a comment. He's a very strong Trump supporter. Posted a comment last night that the language of violence from the other side, who's pointing their fingers, is what's caused this. And I know I had been talking to Lisa very shortly after. It's like this is both sides that have raised the stakes so high. Like Biden's camp, the Democratic camp, the left progressive Democratic leaning media has been running, or not running, beating the drum of existential threat, end of democracy, existential threat, end of democracy for well over a year. But so have the right.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been doing the exact same thing
Mm-hmm.
for 4, 5, 6 years.
Yeah.
They're out to get you. They want to shut you down. They want to
silence you. They want to silence your voice. They're
silence you.
They're canceling
right?
you. They're censoring.
They're canceling you. They're canceling me.
They're,
if they had their way, your whole way of life would be over. You won't be able to worship at your church anymore. They're coming for your kids, right? Like, while not directly violent on either side that I have explicit memory of, although I'm sure there is some explicit violence commentators, both sides have been beating this drum of, if the other guy wins, our whole way of life is over.
Yeah.
The definition of existential threat to our lives, our democracy.
There is a couple people.
I am surprised it took so long to happen, not that it happened. And I'm disappointed that it happened, but grateful that the injury he received was so minor.
Yeah.
And it is utterly tragic that the guy that died protecting his family.
Yeah, and apparently there was a surgeon that was in the crowd that went
also
over. Also
heroic that he protected his family.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have died.
It
shouldn't have ever happened.
There was a surgeon that they interviewed that was like just at the rally, and he went over to. He's like, obviously, I tried to help him, but there's nothing to do, so I just tried to make it easier, And he had blood all over his shirt. He's like, and you could hear the helicopters, and everybody's asking him questions. He goes, "Well, there's a helicopter. I should probably go. Like, they're going to get his body or whatever, And they got out the people that were injured. Like I said, again, I want to make very clear. Like, I totally disagree with Trump. I didn't want him to be shot. I was shocked. Like everybody, like, what in the why would you like? You know what I mean? Like,
it's, I'm sad to say, maybe I'm calloused, maybe I'm numb to this. I immediately after I saw it, my response was like, I'm not shocked, right? By no means. In fact, after the immunity case wrapped up in the Supreme Court, I distinctly remember thinking, I don't know if I remember thinking, someone's going to try to kill him because no one thinks the Justice Department can get him.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to...
It's only a matter of time before someone tries to kill him.
I do want to see if, they said, like I told my, Carla, my wife this morning, we were talking about it, and I said, well, he doesn't really have a social media presence now, but if he's pre-planning this, which he obviously did, they're going to have forensic IT people go through all this stuff and see if he deleted, because that would be the smart play, is to delete social media and delete whatever. Or you start searching his house, you see a notebook somewhere with some notes, or a journal, or a diary, or
we'll
whatever.
get more details. We'll get more, like, they're all saying we don't know the motives. Biden last night said don't speculate on the motives. I appreciate his perspective on that. I appreciate that he reached out to Trump directly.
Yeah.
But Trump was still at the hospital.
Yeah, I know. It's like, he's busy. He can't talk right now.
The reporting was... Yeah, I believe the reporting was that they have since spoken, which, I have a great level of respect that Biden would do that. And these guys do not like each other.
No. But I mean, that's kind of above the pale when you're like, again, like me, like I don't like him, but I obviously didn't want to see that happen. I definitely want to call and see if he's okay. And
right. It's just my hope would be, and I'm so cynical and disappointed with everything in the world at the moment, that my hope would be that both of them would stand up and take accountability for their rhetoric, and recognize. But we know Trump won't. because he accepted zero accountability for his rhetoric before January 6th. Um, and Biden has proven to be a very much digging his heels. I've done nothing wrong. I'm the best guy to do this race and things recently kind of guy. So
Yeah,
I
Biden.
just
Apparently, I just read Biden had a closed door phone call with some like centrist Democrats, and it was kind of contentious because they were like, "What is going? Like, we're losing. What's going on?" And they had to
yep.
end the meeting. But then everybody said, "Oh, it was fine. It was a good meeting." You're like, "Okay." Also, uh, two things. One, out of all the tweets, there was a tweet from an ABC reporter hours after all this happened, and we kind of had not a. Well, I mean, we don't have a great picture now, but we know the events, right? He got shot, he got taken off stage. This ABC reporter basically said it appears that there has been an assassination attempt against Trump, and he has been let off stage. And this was like 2 hours after the event. And somebody that I follow that reports on video games responded and said, "This guy cracked it." This guy cracked the case, and that just made me laugh because it's like, well, we already know that happened. And the second thing was, the one joke that I thought was pretty good was from a progressive person. They go, when all this information came out about the shooter that he gave to the super PAC, that progressive super PAC, but then registered as Republican, they were like, "Wow, a swing voter." I was just like, "What?" I was like, "I never thought of that. That's crazy." That it was a swing voter that did it. Like, so, yeah, and like, again, we always talk about agree for politics. If I'm Biden, I'm like, who, do I do the rally? What, do I go to, I don't know where it was next, like, hey, when can we conduct that independent review? Have we gone through everybody's backgrounds in the secret service? Like, is everybody up to snuff? Because that's scary. And again, they're both in the middle of a campaign, so I don't know. I did read a report that right after it happened, I think it was just they couldn't reach anybody for comment, but apparently that night he was going to go to a MMA event or a UFC event, Trump was, and they hadn't confirmed whether he was going to cancel, and I was like, well, obviously he's not going to go, but like they can't get a hold of anybody, but it just sounded funny, the thing of like, yeah, he's planning to go to an MMA thing tonight. I'm like, no, he's not. But I mean, they're both campaigning, so what is he going to do for security now? He's not going to do the events that he wanted to do, probably. And Biden's probably going to take extra precaution. Also,
I really had the thought, right? Like, we may see a completely different Trump from now on. We really may, right? Like, he's got for the first time in his life, he genuinely is facing the reality that people hate him enough they want to kill him.
Yeah, I know. It's not rhetoric like you said on a message board or True Social. It's like, no, someone did actually take a shot at you. So it
they injured him.
Yeah.
Again, he is 1 inch away from being dead.
Yeah. Well, I will say
1 inch.
Yeah, I know. I like you said, he was very lucky, depending on your faith. I mean, if it was God protecting him, then yeah. I don't know.
And you could spin that either way, right? Like, you could spin that as God is protecting him because Trump's the anointed politician, which is how it read in the stream of commentary I was reading under Glenn Beck's post. Or you could read as it was God protecting the country from the fallout that would happen. I mean, if Trump had been killed, no one. Oh, that's not true. I don't want to make that cynical. I really am at the moment. But, I would say there'd be very high odds that there'd be a lot of violent actors that would be lashing out because they'd be blaming the deep state.
Oh, yeah.
And
Biden
operatives and other people without any information. And the reality of it is I suspect that there's a very large contingent of our country on the left and the right who are not going to trust whatever comes out of the investigation. One side is going to be saying it's the Biden investigation. They're the ones who tried to do this. You can't trust the details. And on the other side, they're going to be saying, nope, this is a complete setup. It's just this big, huge cover-up. This was Trump trying to get it. Because my most left-leaning friend that commented about it posted the picture of Trump with his fist in the air and said, the picture that won the election.
I will say, I mean, I don't know if I really want to get into it. As other people commented, this will help him. And I was talking to my wife, people rally around him. I mean, and he's already kind of ahead in the polls, so he might get a little bump. And on top of it,
he's going to get the sympathy vote, right? He's going to look composed in that scenario, right?
Like literally, they are after him. And two, with Biden, he's on this kind of like a rehabilitation part of the campaign, but all the attention's not going to be focused on him. It's going to be all about Trump, right? So,
yep.
I mean, if I was in the Democratic Party, I'm like, listen, like, without even getting into the whole Trump thing of like, listen, he's going to go on the road, and then two, both you and I have complained about this whole election. It's been very little bit about the about the issues. It's been more of a referendum on the other candidate, right? And so what is that?
Oh, 100%. There's nothing about the issues.
So what's going to happen to Trump now when he's going to talk about, they tried to get me, I'm still here. Like, that's what the rallies are going to be now, right? The good. So he's not going to start injecting policy, which I didn't think he was anyway. But it's going to, it's... there's a whole thing about, like, we made fun of the victimhood, but he's kind of got a point now. Like, if he wants to play the victim card, it's like, no, they actually shot at me and I got hurt.
There's hard evidence on video that all of us are aware of, right? Like, it's 100% true. Before we even knew details, I was reading commentary of people however, though, that were saying, oh, this is a huge setup. And they're like, he got hit in the ear. And they're like, you ever heard of a blood pack? They use them in the film industry all the time.
Oh, no, here we go. Yeah, luckily... I did unplug for most of the day before I had to do my pod, and then I went to the gym and I worked out, and I haven't done that in a long time, so it was a good 25 minutes of curls, and I said, you know what, I think I'm done. I can't. My body was like, what are you doing, man? But then I just came home, and my wife and I watched video game trailers because it was like, oh, this is far removed from reality. Let's watch somebody shoot a green alien that came out of the sky. Like
I went to church today, and we came home, and I was like, I made it through the whole thing without talking about Trump. And my wife was like, huh? And I was like, I was really worried that there was going to be too many people there. Like, what do you think about the news? And I didn't want to think about it. I read all the stuff last night that I could stomach. After church, I started looking up more stuff, but I really just went and avoided it this morning. I played some Civilization this morning. I ran this morning.
Oh, you mean
to my mom?
You mean a properly run Civilization with like actual governance-ship where you can put resources where you need to put them, and the people are somewhat happy in your version of Civilization, right?
Are you making fun of our current Civilization, Joe?
No, I will say this.
Or are you making fun of your skill at strategy games?
No, that too. That could happen too. One thing I will say is there's a Canadian guy named David Dole who lives in Canada, but he does a lot of reporting on politics in general, and obviously because it's election year, he's doing a lot of U.S. politics. I like him. He's pretty heavy-handed. Well, of course, all this broke, and he did a live video from his car, and he was in a tank top, and he was like, guys, I'm going to level with you. I had today off, and I went out with my friends to a park, and we were having a good time. And he goes, maybe I had a couple drinks. And he goes, we were walking around. And he goes, then I sent the picture in my social group. And he goes, then everybody said, nice timing. And he goes, I don't understand what's happening. So he goes, I checked the news. And he goes, are you kidding me? He goes, are you kidding me? He goes, this is ridiculous. And he talked, he's from Canada. He's like, how did a 20-year-old get a gun? He goes, I don't even want to go to America now. How do you guys sleep at night? I was like, yeah, we're going to be asking all this question in the next couple weeks. How did this guy get it?
I mean, it's gonna move the conversation around. That's going to happen, right? But like I was reading something just a little bit ago about the events, and they talked about the attempted assassination at Giffords, and I think it was in 2012 or 11.
Mm-hmm. She tweeted out too. She's like, listen, I know this, and it's terrible. My heart goes out to Trump and his family and the person that died at the rally and the people in the hospital. Basically, something like that. Like, to all the people that respond, she'd be the one. If you're like, you don't know what you're talking about, it's like she kind of does. Yeah.
Well, and Scalise also tweeted out about it too.
Because he got.
The two of them were both shot by would-be assassins. Both survived.
Scalise the baseball game? Wasn't there? Yeah, that's right.
It was a softball game.
Yeah.
And both of them went different ways on it, right? Like, Giffords came away and has been a massive gun activist, anti-gun activist ever since.
Yeah, gun regulation,
After she finally got her health back. 'Cause, I mean, she was severely injured. She's, like Trump, extremely lucky to be alive.
She's still in a wheelchair. Because I think I saw her right after the accident do, like, a public thing, and she was in a wheelchair. And I was like, oh,
she still is.
I don't know if she's paralyzed or just recovering, obviously, because I think she got shot.
If you've seen her recently in a wheelchair, or more recently, then she probably still is.
I think it was
Scalise is obviously back to work, and also was shot and seriously wounded, and he has been very pro-gun. He's been very active in protecting the Second Amendment.
I actually do know. I wonder what is going to happen with that conversation now, because it is Trump, right? And as much as people want to support firearms, it's like, well, look what happened. You know what I mean?
It was a legally purchased firearm.
Yep.
That was his father's.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
It was legally purchased by his father.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess we get to see all that. I mean, I was shocked like everybody else. It's not like I was like, yes, I was just like, holy crap, dude. What does this mean for everybody too? Like tomorrow there's going to be podcasts and news reports. They're going to find more out, and there's going to be all this commentary, and it's troubling.
Well, and when I messaged you, it wasn't even really on any of my news feeds anywhere. I don't even remember what I was doing, but I got an alert on my phone from Meet Kevin. And if you're not familiar with Meet Kevin,
he's Kevin like an investment guy, isn't he?
Financial
he's
YouTuber.
Yeah.
Right. So he does like home investment, stock investment. Like that's his whole gig, in economy coverage. And it seems like either he was watching a live stream from somewhere, or just had his pulse of the vein in some capacity, that he had it up before any news network on any of my feeds anywhere had it up. So I was watching, and he was playing a live feed from a right-leaning YouTube channel that was like live streaming the event, and they were back and forth talking about it.
I don't think
he was playing their footage.
I mean, I don't know if it's a type of people that I follow on X and all that kind of stuff, but I didn't really see that many unhinged takes. A lot of people were like, "This is just going to change everything," And then somebody said, "There's some reporters that said like, this is going to get dark because like if you think like with freedom of speech and stuff like that, and the FBI, like they're going to crack down hard. So like if you think it was bad before, it's going to get worse with post. I don't know really. So
paranoia, legit, man. If they don't back off the rhetoric, it's going to happen again."
Yeah, like I said, I want to see Monday. I mean, I didn't see. Apparently, Alex Jones released a statement. You talked about it a little bit. I didn't watch it. I was like, I can't do that to my brain right now. And
no, I didn't see Alex Jones's statement, but I've seen other stuff of his that is just in the far off the rails conspiracy end of things, and it foments this desperation, this utter terror in the hearts and minds of people that they would end up doing something like this.
Yeah, it sucks.
And you and I have talked before, right? Like, I don't like Trump. I don't want him to win. I think the man is a criminal. I think he is trying to win the office again because he doesn't want to get prosecuted. I think he's trying to do it again because he got really rich and powerful doing it. And I think he wants to do it because he's an insane narcissist that really honestly thinks that he is the best for the country without any recognition that, like, honestly, actually, you're quite terrible, man. During his presidency, maybe some good things got done, maybe they didn't. But, like, if he becomes president again, he's not going to tear democracy down. He's not going to destroy it, right? He can't. We have checks and balances. So, short of him winning enough of the House, enough of the Senate, or not him, but, like, enough of the House, enough of the Senate coming through, and the Supreme Court justices just suddenly deciding they're going to 100% side with him, which they have already proven they don't. Amy Coney Barrett has broken ranks many times. So has Joan Roberts. She
kind of did, but like not really. With the immunity thing, she sided with the conservative justice, but in her thing dissented. So she still voted 6-3 or whatever, but still said, "Well, this is flawed." But if she really wanted to dissent, it would have been 5-4. So she didn't really. So I mean,
she's broken ranks many times. She didn't on the immunity case, but in other cases, she's 100% broken ranks. In fact, so much so that right-leaning people have been like,
we got sold a bad bill of goods, basically.
Trump's only bad decision in office is how she's been labeled by some people.
I don't know. I guess we're just. I guess we're just gonna have to see. It's just gonna be all next week. We're just gonna see like what happened. Yep. So, thanks for joining me, Evan. I know it was an audible when I was like, "Hey, we got to talk about this," because we don't really do breaking news, but this is pretty important. So.
Yeah. Big deal.
So, like I said in my Gaming with a Greek podcast, everybody be kind to each other. If you can call somebody and make their life a little better, do that. You
got someone that you disagree with very deeply, and maybe you've had a strained relationship over politics for the last few years. Make it a point to reach out to them and be like, "Hey, look, like we may not disagree. This may be difficult. but I still love you, man.
Yeah, it's totally
or,
fine.
Or lady.
Or
whatever.
whoever.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, have a good night. I might have some ice cream. I might go have some ice cream, But I did work out, so maybe I'll just have
Might be worth it.
I had a little bit before, but see, here's the deal. I did work out, and I want to keep good pace, so maybe I'll just have a sparkling water and call it an even split. Totally whatever. Thanks for joining me, Avin.
Yes, sir.
Bye-bye.